Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we discuss a watch that came out as you see it in 2023 with a movement that was first announced in 2017. This is the Raymond Weil Freelancer Calibre RW1212. And I have to say, we may not have had a Raymond Weil on the channel since the Watch You Want days, which is to say, it's been a while. But This watch, though, is fascinating and worth your while, as it is a stainless steel 40mm integrated bracelet watch that's a little bit different inside and a little bit different outside, all delivered at an effective value price point by a company that is still family-run and independent. A lot of folks don't realize that about Raymond Weil. So we're 40mm in diameter here, 10.8mm thick. From lug tip to lug tip, really quite delightful. It is 49.9, but it doesn't wear that large. At least my impression is that it doesn't feel that large. 21mm is the spacing between the lugs. Now I'm going to put the watch on my wrist and get a sense of the fit. Again, you would not think this is almost 50mm lug to lug, because I feel like I have plenty of clearance on both sides, and as I see it, it looks that way too. The watch is easy enough to wear. I think this is probably an angle that gives you a better sense of its width. Even though this angle generally exaggerates the width of the watch, this really does square with that 50mm rough lug to lug dimension. But then you take a look in profile, and being as thin as it is, well under 11mm, it'll easily fit underneath the cuff, even though this is quite clearly a sporty sports watch. It feels robust. Now, you always wonder with these watches that are priced substantially below $5,000, how do they feel in the hand? Do they take it out of the substance and the fabric of the watch? And I'm happy to say, no, not really. While the bracelet does look like it owes more than a nod to the Rolex Jubilee, it is sort of its own thing. As you can see, the profiles of the links are a bit unconventional and un-Rolex-like. It is integrated into the case band, and then it has a little bit of a taper down from the end link. The polished intermediates, satin finished shoulders. You could see something I really like, removable links fixed by screws. At this price point, you might expect something like pin sleeves, but Raymond Weil doing things the right way, and you can see as they are relatively small links and numerous, you're really going to get a good fit here, as you can tailor quite well and precisely. Underneath, you can see that there's plenty of gaps to avoid pinching skin, pulling hair, or trapping wrist heat. And then we have a double fold clasp with twin trigger release. It is a sequential fold, one side before the other. Again, all of this feeling very robust. I don't get the impression that this is a piece of time tinsel, like some cheap watches on cheap bracelets can be. And the profile of the case is really fascinating. As you can see, they went with sort of a soft crease between the lug profile and the case band, and that's an unusual look. You can also see they used a trick often deployed by watch designers to have flatter cases and fuller lugs, which is to actually set the bezel somewhat below the peak of the lugs. You see how it rides up the side on each flank? That allows the lugs to be relatively longer instead of putting the bezel on top and cropping the lugs, or extending the lugs and sticking the bezel on top. One would cut the lugs down so they'd be inelegant, and then the other would make the watch thicker. So this little riding lug profile is something I often see, and it's done effectively here. We have a crown that's fairly large, screwed down, endows the watch with 100-meter water resistance. We have the Raymond Weil logo with media blast and polish. You can see the case band is satinated, but the lug hoods as well as the lug ends are polished. The bezel is polished. It has a little vertical lip and then sort of you could see just a little bit of slope to the top of the bezel. It's almost completely flat. The watch has a dial that Raymond Weil describes as gradient green, but in truth it's more than that. It has several tiers. You have the outermost tier, which is used for reading minutes. Then we step down to the primary dial, where you find rhodium-plated applied steel indices, these applique rather than printed features, giving it a much more upscale appearance. And you can see that it's a gradient. It's lighter at the center, darker at the edge. There's a couple of different finishes, as we have this pronounced granular texture at center, and then everything else is more of a matte metallic sheen. We have a visible dial side full balance bridge, and this is based on a Sellita SW200. The movement, the R1212, is a collaboration between Raymond Weil and Sellita, and you can see from some features of the case back, it's easier to really see from the back because of the dual reversing wheels that this is SW200 based. and actually they don't do the best job of hiding it. As you can see up in the corner, it has a Sellita movement number signature, but the combination of the inverted escapement, the dial side balance, and then the case back winding, that is distinctive of the R1212. So 4 Hz beat rate, it's a bidirectional winder, 27 joules, and a 38-hour power reserve. It does not feature hacking, but it features a dual anchored balance bridge for better bracing against shock, which is not something you commonly see on Sellita's SW220s. You can also see that the bridge for the balance has been media blasted with the screws polished. It's a good look. It uses Edicron, the gold key for a fine timing adjustment, the silver one for correcting beat error, and then you can see the dial side escapement's been polished with a little bridge underneath for the escapement. It's really cool. It's about 90% of the fun of a dial side tourbillon for probably a lot less than 10% of the price, maybe 5% of the price here. On the reverse side, you can see that this one features a caseback packing sticker, so it's been very sparsely worn. The finishing is mechanical and perfunctory, but attractive enough. This is a watch you're going to admire from the dial side. And again, 100-meter water resistance. We know 100 meters is not exactly 330 feet. As with every other brand, we're just going to hit the I believe button. Let's do a lume shot. Plenty of lumen, no shortage. A lovely watch with the Oh-So 2023 green dial. I think this is actually a green that will stand the test of time. And a watch that, for all the pieces built by Raymond Weil per year, and it's about 200,000 a year, you don't see these too often. A lot of folks are going to look at it, think it's a lot scarcer than it is, and a lot more expensive too. A worthwhile entry into the first echelon price-wise of integrated bracelet steel sports watches. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.